So we're on topic 14, page 71, and the problems we're going to do are 1N, 1T, 1W, 2H, and 2K. So starting first of all with 1N. The first thing we have to always do is look for the greatest common factor. So we look for the highest number that will go into both 28 and 12. And then we look for the lowest power of x. Here we have an x squared, and here we have x to the power 1. So the highest number that will go into both 28 and 12 is 4, the greatest integer. So and the lowest power of x is, out of these two terms, is just x to the power 1. So we factor out 4x, and we get 4x times 7x gives us 20x squared. 4x times plus 3 gives us plus 12x. So the solution is that either 4x is 0 or this term here is 0. If 4x is 0, x is 0, and if 7x plus 3 equals 0, we transpose the plus 3 to the right side. We get minus 3 and then divide by 7. So the other solution is minus 3/7. So clearly x equals 0 is a solution, because if you put it in here, you're going to get 0 on the left side and 0 on the right side. So that's fairly obvious. Now we're going to check the minus 3/7. We're going to substitute this into the left side of this equation. 28x squared plus 12x. So for the x, we're going to write minus 3/7. And since this is squared, this is squared here. Plus 12x, and x is minus 3/7. So when we square this, we get 9 over 49, and 12 times minus 3 is minus 36 over 7. So now we can say that 7 goes into 28 4 times, and 7 goes into 49 9 times. So I divide this by 7 and that by 7. And I get 4 times 9 over 7. And, of course, that's 36 over 7, and this is minus 36 over 7 equals 0. Now, going back to here, you can multiply 28 times 9 over 49 and then reduce it. So it doesn't really matter. You'll get 36 over 7. So let me repeat that. When I went from this line to that line, I divided 7 into 28, I got 4, and I did 7 into 49, and I got 7. So I really reduced this by dividing the top and bottom by 7. So 4 times 9 is 36, divided by 7 minus 36 over 7 is 0. So the left side and the right side are equal to 0. The right side, you can see, is 0. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just put that in at the bottom here. So we just write in so the left side equals the right side. Okay, so let's move on to the next problem, and this is 1t. And here we have 9x squared minus 48x plus 64. So there's no greatest common factor here because there's no number that will go into all three of these numbers. You say, well, 9 and 48, I could divide 3 into this, and I could divide 3 into that. Yeah, but you can't divide 3 into 64. So that's not a possibility, and there's no other numbers there's no integer number that will go into all these. So there's no greatest common factor. You should always look first for the greatest common factor. So what we're going to do here is multiply 9 times 64, and we get 576. And we say, what are the multiples of 576 that sum to 48? And so if we say 576, and we realize that 576 is 24 squared, or 24 times itself. So now we can say that, rewrite this, and write it as 9x squared minus 24x minus 24x plus 64. So the minus 24x and the minus 24x here gives us the minus 48x here. And so the first term stays the same, it's 9x squared. The last term stays the same, 64. And all we've done is change the minus 48x to minus 24x minus 24x. So now we factor these two terms, and the greatest number that goes into both these two terms is 3, and the lowest power is x. So we've got 3x times 3x gives us the 9x squared. 3x times minus 8 gives us minus 24x. Now we factor these two terms together, minus 24x plus 64, and the highest number that will go into both those is 8. And there is no x term that we can factor out because there's no x term over here. So we're just going to factor out minus 8, and that gives us 3x minus 8. So from these two terms, we factored out 3x. From these two terms, we factored out 8. We have to make sure the signs are right, because you see here minus 8 times minus 8 give us plus 64. Be careful of watching for the signs. Now, from this term and this term, the factor that we can take out that's common to both of them is 3x minus 8. So I take out 3x minus 8, and then I'm left with 3x minus the 8. So actually these terms are identical. So you might have been able to see, for example, that this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square, and that it has to be 3x minus 8 squared equals 0. So if you see that right away, that's all more credit. But this is a slower way, but maybe for some people easier to understand. So as I say, you might realize that 9x squared minus 40x plus 64 equals 0 has to be a perfect square. In other words, 3x minus 8 squared, or 3x minus 8 times 3x minus 8. Now, if we set 3x minus 8 equal to 0, the solution has to be x is equal to 8/3. So if I set 3x minus 8 equal to 0 as the solution, and then 3x equals 8 and x equals 8/3. So that's the answer. Now to substitute, I put 8/3 back into the left side of this equation, and I get 9 times 8/3 squared, because this term is squared, minus 48x, which is 8/3, plus 64. So 8/3 squared becomes 8 squared over 3 squared, which is 64 over 9. 48 times 8 divided by 3 gives us minus 128. One way you could do that is say, okay, 3 goes into 48 16 times. 16 times 8 gives me 128. There are different ways of doing that. Use a calculator if you want to calculate that. But the 8/3 means 8 squared over 3 squared. 8 squared is 64. 3 squared is 9. Now the 9's cancel. I get 64 minus 128, and this is, whoops, mistake here, so let me just correct that. That should be plus 64. It was minus 64. So now we've corrected that. Sorry, excuse me. All right, so we've got 64. Here, this term will be 64 minus 128 plus 64. So when we add the 64 and the 64 here, we will get 128. 128 minus 128 is, of course, 0. And the right side of this equation, as you can see, is 0. Now let's go to 1w. Here we have 16x squared minus 49. No GCF, no greatest common factor. There's no number that goes into both 16 or 49. And there's no power of x common term here. But this is the difference of squares. So you can see 49 is a perfect 16 is a perfect square and 49 is a perfect square. So we have 4x plus 7 times 4x minus 7. Notice the inner and outer terms cancel to 0. We have plus 28x minus 28x. So when we solve 4x plus 7 equal to 0, we get x equal minus 7/4. If we solve this, put it equal to 0, we get that. So the solution may be written as, this is plus or minus right here. Plus or minus 7/4. Now, as a check, we try the plus value. We get 16x squared minus 49. Left side, putting in the positive value, 7 over 4 squared minus 49. This becomes 49 over 16. This is minus 49. The 16 cancels here. This 16 cancels with this. We're left with 49 minus 49, which is 0. And the right side is 0. We do the same thing over here. We essentially get the same answer because minus 7/4 squared gives us 49 over 16, which is exactly the same as what we have here. The 16s cancel here. We have 49 minus 49, and we get 0. And the right side is 0. Okay, here we have 7x cubed plus 47x squared minus 14x. The only thing we can take out is x as the greatest common factor. So we rewrite the question and take out the x. X times 7x squared plus 47x minus 14. So x times 7x squared gives me 7x cubed. X times 47x gives me 47x squared. And x times minus 14 gives me minus 14x. I'm just using the distributive rule on this line to get back to this line here to show. Okay, so now I multiply. I take the 7 times the 14, and it's 98. And what are the multiples of 98 that sum to 47? And the answer is plus 49 and minus 2. Plus 49 and minus 2. Now, if you think about it, you say, well, what else could I have done here? Well, you could have said 7 times 14. Their multiples of 98 are 7 times 14, as well as 49 and minus 2. But there's no way that you can combine 7 and 14, irrespective of the signs. That will give you plus 47. So 49 and minus 2 multiplied, or 49 multiplied by 2 gives you 98. Okay, and sums to plus 47. So now we take out the factor x here, as we've done before, and instead of writing plus 47x, we write plus 49 minus 2. Plus 49 minus 2 to replace the plus 47 right here. So we're going to factor these two terms, and then we're going to factor these two terms. We're going to factor these two terms, and then we're going to factor these two. So 7x is common to this and this. Take out the 7x, because 7x times x gives me the 7x squared, and 7x times plus 7 gives me the plus 49. Now, out of these two terms, the only thing I can factor is 2. Minus 2 times plus x is minus 2x, and minus 2 times plus 7 is minus 14. So now you can see that x plus 7 is common to these two. Okay, x plus 7 is common to these two terms. There are really two terms here after this one, and this one. So from this term and this one, I factor out x plus 7, and that leaves me with 7x, which goes here, and the minus 2, which goes here. And the solutions are x equals 0, and x equals minus 7. You can see if I set this to 0, x plus 7 to 0, minus 7 is the solution. If I set this to 0, 2/7 is the solution. So I have x equal to 0 for this one. X plus 7 equals 0 gives me x equals minus 7. And 7x minus 2 equals 0 gives me x equal to plus 2/7. So these are my three solutions. And I check each one of them. If I check 0 and I substitute it into this, 7, no matter what, x is 0 here, or this term, each of these terms will be 0 because x is 0. So this is 0, this is 0, and that's 0, and when I sum them I get 0, and the right side of the equation is 0. What if I put minus 7 in? Well, here I have 7 times minus 7 cubed. All together, this will give me 7 to the 4th with a negative in front of it because there's an odd number of negatives here. So this will become minus 7 to the 4th, which is minus 2,401. You can do that on a calculator. Now, 47x squared, if x is minus 7, will give me 49. 47 times 49 gives me plus 2,303. Minus 14x here, the x is minus 7, so this becomes minus 14 times minus 7 plus 98. So minus here, there's a minus. If I add the 2303 and the 98, I come up with plus 2,401, which cancels this negative 2,401. So the right side is 0, left side equals right side. Now, the third solution is x equals 2/7, and here's the left side of the equation. Excuse me, I'm going to put here, I think I'm going to put right here. So L just going to move that up a little bit here. Excuse me. Okay, now we're okay. So here's the left side of the equation. And we have 7x cubed plus 47x squared minus 14x. Okay, 7 times 2/7 cubed because x is 2/7 plus 47x squared. X is 2/7, so we put a squared here, minus 14x times 2/7. So when you do this, what happens is you have 2 cubed here, so that becomes the 8. And down here you're going to have 7 cubed, but this, when you cancel, you're left with a net of 7 squared on the denominator, which is 49. And this is 47. 2 squared is 4. 7 squared is 49. Minus. Now, 7 goes into 14 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. So you have minus 4 here. So now when we simplify this, what I'm going to do is simply put everything to the common denominator of 49. Instead of 4, I'm going to write 196 over 49. So we really have minus 196 over 49 really gives me 4. You can multiply 49 times 4 and you'll get 196. So 196 over 49 is the same as 4. And here the 8 is the same as this. Now, 4 times 47 is 188. So if you add the 8 and the 188, you get 196. So 196 over 49 minus 196 over 49 gives you the 0. Now the last problem that we're going to do here is 2k. We've got 121x equals 36x cubed. So we're just going to write this as 36x cubed minus 121x equals 0. In other words, I'm going to transpose this to the right side and say 0 equals 36x cubed minus 121, and then just rewrite it here. So x is the greatest common factor. There's no number that goes into both 36 and 121, so the only thing I can factor out is x. X times 36x squared gives me 36x cubed. X times minus 121 gives me 121x. So applying the distributive rule on this line gives me this line here. So I know that I've done it correctly. So now this x becomes this. This is the difference of squares, because you have to realize that 36 is 6 squared and 121 is 11 squared. So we've got 6x plus 11 and 6x minus 11 equals 0. If you multiply 6x times 6x, you get 36x squared. Multiply plus 11 times minus 11, you get minus 121. The inner term is plus 66x if you multiply 11 times 6x. And the outer term is minus 11 times 6x, so that's minus 66x. So the inner and outer term cancel. And so now x is equal to 0 because of this x here as being one of the factors. And then if we solve for x here in both these, we get x is equal to plus 11.6 and x is equal to minus 11.6. So we use this plus or minus term. So now we just put the 11 over 6 into the left side of the equation. So look at the left side of the equation. We put it back into the original equation right here. Okay, so the left side is that. And we get 121x. We put 11 over 6. This happens to be, if you multiply 121 times 11, you'll get 1,331 over 6. So now if we put x equals 11.6 into this side of the equation, we get 36 times 11 over 6 cubed. And this is 6 squared over 6, so we can cancel one of those 6's, and if we do, we're going to get 1331 over 6. So actually this is 6 squared, excuse me. This is 11 cubed, and this is 6 cubed. So if we remove the bracket here, we've got 6 squared, 6 cubed on the denominator here because of this, and 11 cubed. So when we've got 6 squared here and 6 cubed here, we're left with a 6 down here. 11 times 11 times 11, which is 11 cubed, gives us that. So the left side equals the right side. I'll go over that again. This is 6 squared. This becomes 11 cubed because of this, and this becomes 6 cubed because of that. So really we're left with a 6 squared here and a 6 cubed on the denominator here, which leaves us with a 6 over here. 11 times 11 times 11, which is 11 cubed, gives us that. Now, if we try the minus 11/6, it's very, very similar here. We have 121x times minus 11 over 6. That comes out to be minus, there's a minus here, 1,331 over 6. This is very, very similar to the previous one, except that the sign here is now negative instead of positive, and we're still left with the same, we're still left with minus 1,331 over 6, which is the same as this. So the arithmetic is here, and here is the same, except the sign is different. That's all. Here, if x is 0, you can see very clearly 121 times 0 will be 0, which is the left side. 36 times 0 will be 0. The left side equals the right side. So that completes the problems on